was born in New Jersey, raised in New Jersey most of my life. My father was killed when I was 13, so I supported a family since I was 13. I joined the Navy right out of school because they were offering a school in a field of my choice, and I wanted electronics, so I went into the Navy and I got my electronics training. 6 years in, got into 23 countries in 2.5 years on board ship. Got married when I was in the service. My wife and I are still married. We've been married 59 years, but right now she's in a memory unit. She had a stroke and it caused her to have memory problems. I've been busy. I've been father, a husband, caretaker. I spent 40 years in EMS, working as a volunteer in EMS for 40 years. I was with the union as a lineman for 42 years. I was a CPR and first aid instructor for 20 years. I just got done teaching a compression shock CPR class the 5th of June up here to people that don't know CPR. So I'm still involved. I'm still a regular blood donor. In fact, I'll be giving blood again tomorrow. It'll be 261 pints. My dad was involved with auxiliary police and with a rescue squad and a volunteer fireman until, like I say, he was killed when I was 13. So he was always involved. And my mother was an LPN. My sister's an LPN. I've got aunts that are nurses, full-time RNs and things of that nature. So it's always been in the family. I was a bay rat raised on the water. I clammed the low tide and fished the high tide. I've had my own boat and motor now for 72 years. Still got one, still fish, still kayak, still enjoy myself. And I've got my dog who is a emotional support animal, certified emotional support animal, and I use her in rest home visitation. I had 3 non-AED CPR saves in 1 year while I was working with the squad. So I know it works. When I instructed the class last month, I told them, don't ever be afraid to do CPR. You may be the person's only chance. And the 4 best words you're ever going to hear is, we have a pulse. That means CPR has worked and it got the person back.
What is my life story? We moved 17 years ago from South Florida. I worked for a credit union, which used to be Eastern Airlines. You're probably too young to remember Eastern Airlines. Anyway, I worked there almost 25 years, and we decided to move up to Roanoke to get out of South Florida and all the traffic congestion. And we fell in love with it and retired up here. So now we have a daughter in Chicago, which we go one way, and our son and family still in South Florida, and we go the other way. So we do a lot of traveling, and we're just enjoying ourselves. We've had our granddaughter for 2 weeks and really been having a good time. We've taken her so many places, and we're going to the museum today, but it was closed, so we came to the zoo. That's about it. I have a son and a daughter and a granddaughter, and life is good. I met my husband in high school, and we've been together ever since. That was in 1974. So my husband was in the restaurant business for 16 years. That was tough. When my son was born, we hardly ever saw him. When we decided to have my daughter, I said, I never see you. So he went to work for the post office, which was great. The benefits were excellent. He thought he was on vacation because he didn't have to work like 16 hours a day. So he retired with the post office. When I moved up here, I was going to stay at home, work for a temp agency, but that got boring. They sent me on crazy jobs. And I started working for an air conditioning company with Train Commercial. Started doing billing and dispatch, and I loved it, retired from there, and so now I'm not working anymore, just enjoying myself. We walk, we go to the gym, we live up on Windy Gap Mountain, and we love the mountains. So my granddaughter's having a ball, and 2 days ago she saw the bear, one of the bears, many bears that's in our neighborhood, so she was very happy. You just enjoy life, and you give and take a lot. You know, my husband does a lot for me, I do for him. But, you know, you just take care of each other and be happy. So that's the secret to life, just to be happy. Probably when I was younger, you know, the first 10 years of marriage is always tough. getting started and working a lot. But, we managed through it. And so now it's very good. I can't complain.
My life story. I grew up in a wonderful family, a sister and a brother. First in my family to go to college. Got a good job in my dream industry, which is the auto industry, and worked for car companies. Ended my career owning a small business with my wife, and we have 2 beautiful daughters, a nurse and an occupational therapist. We just retired, and I'm doing things like this now. I've had a blessed life, no complaints. I'd say that the most significant thing was my dad worked for F.W. Woolworth, which was at one time the largest retailer in the world, but is no longer. But it was a 5 and dime. Every town had one, and so we moved a lot. I lived like 11 places before I finished high school, so I got used to picking up and moving and changing, and new schools and new friends, and for me that was a good experience. I gained confidence. And I think it's social skills from that made my life easier. I moved from the San Francisco area to the Southern California, Los Angeles area, and one of my good friends was dating her sister and introduced us. Been together ever since. 38 years, marrying the right person. That's the most important part. That's the biggest secret, I think. There's always, challenges along the way, but overall, I'd do it all again in a minute. I think, being able to give them the time that they need. My wife was, we were lucky enough she was a stay-at-home mom. I know that's impossible for a lot of people to do, but we were able to do it, and I think that definitely benefited. And we lived in a nice area where they, had, met nice friends who were, everybody went to college, and that was just the expectation. With their careers, they could not have done that without going to college. Just making sure they made good choices with their friends, which wasn't a problem for us. It wasn't like something we had to really be involved in. But I think we created that environment where those things happened. Yeah, of course, but minor league stuff. Really no significant regrets. I mean, you think about a conversation that you had with somebody that you wish you could take back or change or something like that. But I can't think of anything that, was really a significant thing that really altered my life in a negative way or anybody else's life in a negative way. Some different career decisions maybe I would have made or things like that. But in the end, everything turned out, pretty well. So, like I said, I have a blessed life.
Well, I grew up in the Lower East Side of New York City, and I worked in New York City, and then New York City in the 70s was getting too high crime, and so we moved to Connecticut, a suburb of Connecticut. I worked in the test and measurement industry, among other industries, and then we recently retired to Naples, Florida, and my wife and I are both ex-marathon runners, so we're very active, and now it's like a state law. If you live in Naples, you have to play pickleball. So we've picked up pickleball, and we're visiting relatives, our children, and we're taking rather than flying, which we always do, we're taking a road trip. So we're going to end up in Asheville, North Carolina, and then go back home. We live in one of those gated communities that has tennis and pickleball and swimming pools. So that's my life story in a nutshell. Over 10 years of second marriages. You have to meet the right person, a caring person. So my wife is very caring. My wife has 3 children. They're all grown. I have 2 children. They're all grown. We have, between the two of us, 5 grandchildren. There's some regrets, but more on the positive side. No, you have to be very perceptive when you're at least intelligent when you're in your 20s and you're probably going to get married, so you don't know about a lot about life. You have to slow down and get advice from your parents, even though you never would think that their advice would be helpful. You make a lot of wrong mistakes that affect many, many years. That's my 2 cents on that. The politics today is very disappointing. There's no tolerance in some of the most of the politicians. It's a little scary at our age to see where the country is moving. It's moving in the wrong direction. That's about it. Anything else?
Long life story. Obviously, I'm 71 years of age. Spent most of my life in Maryland and in D.C. Moved down here about 4 years ago. Spend my time playing golf, hiking, fishing. Love it here. Feet hitting the floor every morning. That's my motto. If I do that, it's a success. Yeah, stay in motion is my motto. Feet hit the floor and stay in motion, whatever. Working, I'm not so wild about, but I did it. I don't work now. I haven't worked for about 7 years. Very typical family. It was 5 boys. It was pretty chaotic. Grew up in Maryland. You know, we had a good time. Grew up in the 50s and 60s, and it was we had really good parents. They both were kept in motion. Probably the best way to put it. They both squeezed as much life out of life as you could. That's probably the best way to put it. Good role models, yeah. I have 2 children, both of them. That's one of the reasons we're down here. Both of them were down here. My daughter is up in Minneapolis right now. Just tried to be good parents. Yeah, I have a wife. She's also 71. She's a great parent, great wife. Just very lucky. Met in college, first year of college. Been together ever since. We've been married it'll be 50 years here next year. You just stay in motion. Appreciate each other. That's about it. Life throws a lot of challenges at you weren't expecting, and I have a very tolerant wife. That's probably the best thing that you can ever have, so it's been good. Just be very tolerant. You get through everything.
I started out as a small child. I was born in New York City, and skipping through the dull parts, the last 30 years of my life, I've lived in Key Largo, Florida, in the Florida Keys, where I am a boat captain, a fitness instructor, and a professional musician, guitar and vocals. I am also a part-time realtor, but I'm retired. Not from any of those things. Those are my retirement jobs. I'm a retired occupational therapist / hospital administrator. So my wife and I have been performing music professionally for 56 years. We're supposed to play tomorrow night at Montano's restaurant down in Roanoke, but my wife's got a little bout of cancer that she's handling right now, so we had to cancel that. But we are still a viable entity, and we are recording and playing. I have my daughter Kimberly, who lives here, and I have my daughter Kerry, who lives in Richmond, and I have 2 grandbabies from my daughter in Richmond. So no more Florida Keys, up here in Virginia, where we live at Smith Mountain Lake. You know, everybody wants to know about how you stay married 56 years. People can't believe that somebody's been married 56 years. People are married 5 and 6 times, but not 56 years. Anyway, it started out with us on our honeymoon when Carol and I went to the Grand Canyon to take the mule train ride down from the rim of the canyon down to the bottom. Carol didn't want to do it, but I imposed upon her a little bit. It was our honeymoon. And she was a good sport. She got on the mule, and I got on my mule. And then the mules started to go down the canyon trail. And one of the mules, Carol's mule, made a little misstep and scared her a little bit. So she leaned down to the mule's ear and she said, "That's one." And I thought, what is she talking to the mule about? What does that one mean? So I ignored it, and we went a little further down the trail, and the mule's knee buckled. And Carol went over the saddle like this a little bit. Oh, she was so scared. she leaned down to the mule and she said, "That's 2." I thought, I don't understand. Well, whatever. And down the trail a little further, almost to the end, the mule put his foot off the trail and knocked the pebbles down. Really scared her a lot. So she didn't say anything. She got off the mule. She took out this little .32 caliber pistol that she always carries, and she put it in the mule's ear, and she blew his brains out. And I was horrified, shocked, amazed, and appalled. And I said to her, "Carol, how could you be so inhumane? How could you be so terrible to that poor defenseless animal?" And she looked at me and she squinted her eyes a little bit and she said, "That's 1." And that's how you stay married for 56 years. But a lot of people don't think it's a joke. And when I get to the part where Carol pulls out a little pistol, and you have to know Carol to realize how incongruous this is. When she pulls out the little pistol, they go, "Oh, Carol carries a pistol. She blew the brains out of the animal." And then they realize sometimes that it's a joke. I had a full-time job. I was going to school for my master's at night, playing music professionally with my wife. So when we were young, we had a lot of energy and a lot of commitments to do things. My wife had more stamina than I guess, and she carried the lion's share of that, and she did a great job. There was my daughter Kimberly there, who was very beautiful and lovely and intelligent, and my other daughter in Richmond, wherever that is from here, I don't know. She is also a wonderful child. I like to tell people when we're performing that we have 2 wonderful kids, and they start to clap. And then I say, "And another kid." But we don't really have the other kid. It's just... So I don't take anything too seriously. I think that's another thing about life that you learn as you go along. There's humor in everything. I try to bring a humorous moment to everything that I do. Sometimes just showing up is humorous enough for many people when they see me. Yeah, the girls are great though. They're well-educated and independent. One daughter's married. The other daughter lives here in Roanoke with her significant other who's working on a house that they have bought together. And in about 3 more years, it might be close to finished. It's a big project. Well, I was a goof-off in grammar school and high school, and I didn't take school very seriously, didn't like going to school, took off surfing every chance I got, and, didn't really care much for my future, didn't think much about it, but when push came to shove and my wife and I were married, I realized that something had to be done, and I got a job working for the state of New York in a Department of Occupational Therapy as an assistant. And the real occupational therapists were going to use me as a person to do the work that they assign for their patients. But there were no real occupational therapists. So we just played it by ear, the other instructors and I, because we had no supervision. Then I realized if I could become an occupational therapist, I could run this place, because there's nobody professionally qualified. So I applied to Columbia University in New York City, the College of Physicians and Surgeons. And when they looked at my resume from high school, my grades, they just laughed and laughed and laughed. But I prevailed upon them. I said, let me get into the school by making up for the electives that I need and getting good grades to show you I can do the work. And they said, okay, go to summer school. You have to take biology, zoology, 3 or 4 credit courses, and then an independent study or something that I did. And I aced them. I aced them all because I studied hard. I worked hard. And I knew I could do it. I wasn't stupid. But I never had the motivation. So I graduated from Columbia, and then I went for my master's in healthcare administration. My family was on its way. It was good. And we struggled a lot in the beginning because the jobs were, state jobs, and taking care of people is a good thing to do, but it doesn't pay a lot of money, as any nurse or healthcare worker will probably tell you. It was rewarding and fulfilling, and I think I chose the right path, although a lot of people, when they heard us play music, especially my wife singing, they said, what are you doing here? You should be big. But we wanted to give our kids a normal life and stay in a school district that they could have friends in and things like that. You want to hear my wife sing? We know 2,000 songs because we've been doing it 56 years, and my wife gets bored with playing the same things. So she kept learning new ones. We recorded several CDs. Mostly they're covers, though. But we do have a couple of originals. That's a good one. This will give you an example of the power of my wife's voice. She's only about that big, but She is incredibly powerful vocally, and she's magnificently talented with keyboards. She's playing bass with her left hand and two different keyboards alternating with her right hand. And it's just phenomenal to me. When we started playing music professionally, I played guitar, she played nothing. And I did most of the singing, she did a little harmony. Now she does most of everything. Music, instruments, vocals. But we've come a long way from our early roots. Just the next phrase or two, the next minute or so, give you a demonstration of what I'm talking about. She starts to growl, she gets into it. That.
Don't you think you're falling? If everybody wants you, why isn't anybody calling? Well, you don't have to answer. Leave 'em hanging on the line.
That's just two pieces. It's all one line. There's no backup tracks pre-recorded or anything. This was a live version that we did and of course we played.
I think they got you now. I think they got you.
It's everything.
That you've been living on.
And the unfortunate part of it right now is that she was diagnosed with breast cancer, and now she's taking chemotherapy here locally at the Carillion and Blue Ridge group. And she just finished her second chemotherapy on Friday, and now we can't play for a while until she almost gets back to normal, which takes about 2 weeks and a half. And then we can do an occasional job until she takes the next infusion of the medication, and then she's down, laid low again. But the good news was when she had the surgery for her tumor, it was a very, very small tumor, so she didn't need a big mastectomy, just a little lumpectomy. But the bad news is it's the type of cancer that is most likely to come back. So we're concerned for her on a certain level, and then we're happy that she's on the path to wellness again on a certain level. But that about brings you up to date. I'm proudest of all of my family, my wife, my 2 children, who I'm so blessed with, and I'm proud of the achievements that we as a group, as a family have achieved, and I'm proud of individual achievements that, and when I say individual, I mean Carol and I never speak of myself without Carol. A few years ago, we did something called the Great Loop. We lived on a boat for 10 years. As I said, I'm a boat captain, and we lived on a 47-foot trawler for 10 years, and we traveled to the Bahamas and all over the Florida Keys, and we were based in the Florida Keys. A few years ago, I got an idea about going on this trip that they call the Great Loop. And I talked to my friend about it, and he said, yeah, I'll go with you and do that. So we took a boat from Florida, headed it up the Atlantic Intercoastal Waterway to New York, then into the Hudson River, up through the Great Lakes, into Canada, and then down through the river system, the Mississippi, the Ohio, the Kentucky, all of these various rivers that brought us all the way back down to the Gulf in Mobile, Alabama. And we went out into the Gulf of Mexico. We got hit by Hurricane Michael. It was 2 boats that weren't sunk in a marina of 100. Ours was one of them that didn't. We then proceeded on across the Gulf of Mexico back down to Florida Keys. And our starting point, it took us 6 months. It was 6,000 miles, and it was one of the greatest experiences of our lives. Fewer people have completed that than have climbed Mount Everest. So it was an accomplishment.
My life story, as brief as I can say it, is my parents were immigrants from Finland. My sister here to my left and myself were the first children of 5 born in this country. Well, started in Ohio. My father taught at Ohio State University, and then from there we went to Hawaii, where he taught at the University of Hawaii. And then in a roundabout way, very roundabout way, ended up here in Virginia. And what I love so much about Virginia is it reminds me so much of Hawaii with all the beautiful greenery and flowers. We have a small farm in the Blue Ridge Mountains where we raise sheep and ducks. My husband and I started out with horses, working with Arabian horses and breeding Arabian horses, but that we did before I came to Virginia. We did that in California. And then we came to Virginia and scaled things down to sheep and ducks. Yeah, I would say they were in their 30s. My father was actually invited to come from the Finnish Institute of Technology to teach at Ohio State University, and then on to University of Hawaii. Yes, I have one son, my husband, and one son, who is 29 years old. Yeah, I've been married 42 years. My son is actually adopted. He adopted when he was 3.5. A true blessing to us. I don't know what to say about raising kids. Just know that, they're going to be them, and you have to let them be who they are and guide them in the best way and be the best role model you can. Well, yeah, it was definitely a true life moment, and of course, just raising kids, it really does, is a change in your life. So I don't know that it really makes a difference whether they're your own or they're adopted, but you still love them just like they're your own. The only difference is our son was 3.5 when we adopted him, so we didn't. That was a slight difference than maybe most people experience, but it was at times challenging experience, but wonderful at the same time. And we love him obviously as if he was our own, and I don't ever think of that as anything different. Oh, well, for me right now, life, my son has grown. I've had my career, so I'm into retirement and just enjoying life on the farm, and just, enjoying every day and trying to do for others that maybe I didn't have a lot of time to do before. No, sometimes, you have a goal and you don't achieve it, and it's disappointing. But I think things have a way of working out. The one goal I had as a young person was to go to veterinary school and be a veterinarian, but it didn't work out. And because it didn't work out, I ended up meeting my husband, and in life was very fulfilling. I still, I love the animals, and I enjoy owning animals and livestock, and that I'm fine with that.
My life story is I grew up on a farm in Delmarva Peninsula in Pocomoke City, Maryland. 600 acres, one of 5 children. Graduated from Pocomoke City High, went off to Fayetteville Tech in Fort Bragg, got a degree in air-conditioned refrigeration. By the time I was 28, the Lord called me into ministry, and I've been a preacher for 44 years. And I pastored 6 or 7 churches. First church was 17th Street in Southeast Roanoke. The second church was North Henderson Baptist Church in Henderson, North Carolina. The third church was in Weems, Virginia, Claybrook Baptist Church. And then after that, I came to Rocky Mount, Virginia, and pastored Furnace Creek Baptist Church. And then I started a church, Cross Point Community Church on Virgin Good Highway. Then after that, I moved back to my home church, Riverdale Baptist Church, and became pastor there for 6 years. And then left that job, and I worked at McDonald's for about almost a year, and then I pastored my last church where I retired from last year, and that's Cornerstone Baptist Church in Southeast Roanoke. And then when I retired, I started a ministry called 24013, and that's the zip code of that area in Southeast. And my mission is, when I'm retired, to knock on all the doors there, ask people about the relationship to Jesus. I normally ask 2 questions. I don't knock on doors where dogs are, fences, no trespassing, posted sign. I don't answer them. There's 6,000 homes in that zip. I asked them 2 questions. One, the first question, important question, is, in your opinion, when you die, do you think you're going to heaven, in your opinion? And then they answer that question, yes, no, I don't know, I hope so, whatever. And then the second question is, suppose you were standing before God right now, and He was to ask you one question, and the question is this: why should I let you in my heaven? What do you think you would say? Now that's a clincher. That's a tough one. Most people don't know. They're like politicians. They beat around the bush. People who do know give you a straight answer. Politicians always say, well, that's a great answer. That's a great question. But they do that. And that's I'm raising my grandchildren, two of 5. I'm part of a new church restart in Boone's Mill. I've left that church, retired now, and at Ridgeview Baptist Church in Boone's Mill, Virginia. Today's a half a day with the kids' first day back at school, at Faith Christian School. It's a relationship, it's not a religion. It's a relationship that I was nurtured in a little teeny church in Stockton, Maryland, out of Pocomo. It's called Goodwill Baptist Church, and went to church every Sunday. I didn't get to see Wizard of Oz till I was 18 because we went to church on Sunday night, and that's when Disney played, that sort of thing. You know, I went like most kids. I went because Dad said go, you know, that was it. Then when I turned 18, 19, I become what they call a wayward son or whatever. All my brothers were prodigals at some time. They all came back to God except one. But we come back, and the Lord started using me after that to do many things. And I've been involved in evangelism, sharing Christ, every opportunity I get. How about you? Well, I've studied at Averett University for 3 years, got my BA degree there. I studied at Virginia Western for 3 years, got my associate's BA degree there. Went to Wake Forest in North Carolina to Southeastern Theological Seminary and spent 6 years there and pastoring a rather medium-sized good church for a student. What's happening right now in America, the Jesus movement is coming back. It's sweeping America. People are seeing their faith encouraged through miracles, and they're seeing their faith, people that never would imagine that they would be following Christ or following Christ. There's people in our church where I used to pastor, homeless, got saved. People that were alcoholics got saved. There was a fellow in the church, he said, I couldn't wait before I came here, couldn't wait to get home after church and drink me some beer and crack the top on that. A good friend of mine now, very good friend, works in the church, very dedicated. And there's people that are nobodies, according to most churches, but there's somebody when it comes. We treat everybody the same. A lot of people, we pick up half of the people who come to our Cornerstone are picked up on a van every Sunday. Money is not the option. We had a lady, I befriended her in 2018, and I didn't know she was a multimillionaire. I did not know it at all. And she gave $100,000 to the church, and we're still going on that. And money is, you know, whether you put money in the plate, the church is going on, you know. And she said, if you do well, the church does well. I've arranged it in the will that you get another $100,000. No strings attached. And so that's what God's doing. And I believe that my wife was healed with cancer. At one of the churches where we were at, she had stage 3 or 4 carcinoma, breast cancer, and complete healed. I have a brother. He had pancreatic cancer and died last year. He wasn't healed, but that's a whole other story. But I have an older brother. Me and my older brother are 2 living out of 5, and he is involved heavily in child evangelism fellowship, and that's having Bible clubs in schools and backyard Bible clubs, and they do a tremendous ministry. One of his granddaughters is in Iowa or Minnesota somewhere. One of his daughters has 8 children, all of them involved in sharing Christ, and they homeschool. And one's studying to be a doctor, and the other one's already graduated from Liberty and doing missions and that sort of thing. Somebody told me that they didn't know if there was a here by and by. And I said, well, let's just look at that. Let's just look at that. If you're wrong, you can't turn back once you pass away. If I'm wrong, I'll just go into zero land and nothing. But I believe in Christ because he died on the cross. I believe that not only he died on the cross, he was crucified for my sins. I believe that Jesus was the Son of God and is the Son of God, and he's equal with God. through the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. And I believe that Jesus is coming back one day. You read your paper and you see the news. In Revelation, it tells about all the things that are happening, floods, heat, sun's our enemy now. It says one day, we're not going to destroy the earth. Man's not going to destroy the earth. One-fourth of all the earth mankind will be destroyed. But God has a purpose. He has a purpose. And one day, after it's all over with, I'll come back, and the Bible says in Revelation, it says a new heaven, a new kingdom came down from God as a holy city, and we'll dwell with him, and he will be our God, and we will be his people. And that means that no matter what happens between now and then, doesn't make any difference, because he hadn't been wrong. I got a picture of myself when I went to the beach about 3 weeks ago. There's a big old jaws, bone of a jaws. My wife and I stood in the jaw bone left over from a shark. It is 3 feet higher than me. And all of us fit in the jaws in a picture. Somebody says, well, I don't know if the big fish, well, it wasn't a shark, it was a big fish. The Bible says a big fish. Jesus referred to Jonah as in the days of Jonah shall the last days be. And we're living in the last days. And one of the wonderful prophets of our time, you need to look it up. His name is Jonathan Cahn, CHAN.com. He will unravel the news. He'll unravel politics. He'll tell you he was a converted Jew. He's an atheist, an agnostic, and he had an accident one day, in a tractor-trailer accident. He got out of the tin can he was in, and he got out without a scratch. And he said, there must be a God. And then from a Jewish background, he started studying, and he is fantastic. I tell people that don't believe anything I say, look up Jonathan Cahn on YouTube, and you will be intrigued by how he sews it all together. He goes after anybody that doesn't believe in Christ. He says this is the way it is, and he can give you a date and a time for everything that happened. So we're living in a time when the false gods are returning. When before Jesus came, there were gods, there were Israelite gods, there's gods of many different people and so forth. And now we're going back to those. And all of those gods have blood sacrifice, every one of them. In America, it's no wonder that we don't care about kids. We don't care about children. We sacrifice them millions and millions. I'm pro-life, if you don't get it. But that's just the way it is. And what happens is that people can believe anything. I don't try to change people's minds. I say you make a choice, you live with a choice. You can get away with anything you want to, but there's a payday someday. One day you'll answer to the universe superior creator of all time that thought through the black hole, that thought through every scientific problem we've ever had. And how I explain it is very easy. If you have a watch you find on the desert floor, and it's ticking, it's a solar watch, of course. And it's ticking, it's keeping time, it's been keeping time for years. That watch had to have a creator. It had to have a master. It had to have somebody to think through all the delicacies of a Swiss watch or a Rolex or whatever. And you find it working. Well, the first question you ask is how it got there. Well, who put it there? Well, who created it? Where'd it come from? If you go back far enough, you come to a black, unmistakable question. Is there a God? Now, on the cross, the thief on the cross, he was a thief. Ain't nothing I hate more than a thief. I've been robbed twice, my house. And the thief on the cross, the thief on one side, the thief on the other. One side wanted to get set free off the cross, Jesus in the middle. The other thief, he rebuked him. He said, this man's done nothing bad. He whispered to God, remember me when you come in your paradise. Shortest prayer, remember me. God says, today you'll be with me in paradise. At 9 o'clock, the thief was a criminal. At 12 o'clock, he got Jesus. At 6 o'clock, he died. He went to heaven. He was the first person to enter the kingdom of God. Imagine all the angels in heaven, all the galaxies said, who will it be that's coming into heaven? Who will he bring? Will he bring Daniel? Will he bring Abraham? Will he bring Moses? He said, I go prepare a place for you in John 14. He says, who will he bring? And here he brings a dirty, rascal, redeemed thief into heaven to walk the streets of gold, the very first person into heaven. Now, the point is, that thief had to believe that his Savior, the Redeemer of his life, was hanging on a cross for something he didn't do, bleeding. And he heard him whisper, Father, forgive them. Never, they pulled beard out of him, they whipped him with a whip, they had a black African guy to carry him, his cross to Calvary, got all that stuff. And there the thief was, knew that he deserved it. He said, just remember me. He didn't say, give me a mansion. He couldn't fold his hands. He couldn't touch Jesus. He couldn't bow at the bottom of the cross. He couldn't give money. He couldn't join a church. He couldn't do anything. And so what happened there? The thief said, he acknowledged that Jesus was real. And only when you acknowledge that Jesus is real, it's not a story, it's not a this or that, when you acknowledge Jesus is real, you be like the thief. You can be redeemed, you can come. It don't make a difference where you've been. Listen, I've dealt with addicts, homeless people, drug addicts, and all that sort of thing. It don't make a difference where they've been. It's who they believe. When I got married to my wife, I believed in her. We've been married 47 years, I think. 48, something like that. But what happened was I had faith, I had love, and I had hope. Hope is what you don't see. So heaven's what we don't see. Faith is something we believe in, and love, the Bible says faith, hope, and love, these three. The only thing that lasts in heaven is love. You don't have to have hope there because you're already there. You don't have to have faith there because you're already there, and that sort of thing. But that's probably a short version of my Sunday sermon I gave you. Rest of it. God bless you.
Family, support of my family, love for my family. My sons, daughter-in-laws, 2 granddaughters, sister-in-laws, sister, brother. During the last 6-7 months, they've supported great. Lost my wife July the 2nd. Listen to each other, compromise, and love. I have no regrets. I would do the same thing all over again. Life's been good.
I was born here in Roanoke, grew up here, just moved away about 10 years ago to Wilmington, North Carolina, where my son moved and his wife, and they started having children, so Mimi had to go down there. So my husband still works up here for now, but we're living in Wilmington now with my family, and I'm up here visiting my family here. So, and went to high school here and worked here and love Roanoke. We were just talking about how beautiful it is, and when we leave here, we don't pay any attention to it. But when you come back after you've been gone a while, it's amazing. These mountains are just gorgeous. I'm married, been married 51 years. Got married in high school, still together. It was a little turmoil. Parents got divorced. Father was an alcoholic. So it was tough. She had 3 girls she had to raise by herself. So it was a hard existence, but we made it. So it was myself and my other 2 sisters, just 3 of us. And we all got married young, and we all are still married. So kind of odd, isn't it? After being in a divorce situation, you end up all staying married. That's where I got where I am now. Met in high school, yeah. I was a senior in high school, graduated Mrs. instead of Miss. Everybody said it won't work, you'll never stay together, but we did. So I think we were both just so ornery and determined that we weren't going to have a broken up marriage like our parents, that we were determined that this was going to work. Plus we had a child to think of too, so we didn't want him to grow up without Mommy and Daddy both being part of his life. So that was special. Financial, when you get married in high school, you have nothing, and you live in a furnished apartment that with no heat hardly in the winter, so it's tough. I think if you make it through those really hard, tough times and the times get good, you appreciate each other more because, you've been through everything together. So that bonds us. Our child bonds us. Our grandchildren bonds us. So it's family that bonds us together. And we would just never think of splitting up because we wouldn't be without our family when we just couldn't exist without that. I have one son. He was brought up in the church, so that was very important to us for him to have a Christian background. He's done very, very well with his life. We're very proud of him. He's a judge in Wilmington. I have 2 grandsons that I'm just over the moon about, and so life is good. Yeah, retired. Living life, coming up here, doing what I want to do when I want to do it. It's great. Don't worry about the world fairs. I know God's got his hand on everything, and he's still king, and he's still on the throne. So I just kind of leave it up to him to handle the stuff that's going on. Everything in Israel, we've been talking about that today, and how horrific it is and how upsetting it is. And it is upsetting, but you finally have to just know that he's got control of it. So, and he does. So just live one day at a time and enjoy every day you get, because you don't know what the next one's going to bring you. You wake up on the green side of the grass, that's a good sign. I know young people, when they get married, they're easy to give up and say, well, we can always get a divorce, or maybe we won't just get married, maybe we'll just live together. And if we don't like it, we can go our separate ways, but you have to make that commitment. You make a commitment to each other when you get married in your vows, and it hurts me to see that people don't take that as seriously as they should. And you just got to get through everything together, good times and the bad times. Don't put the lid on the toothpaste right. Didn't lower the lid on the commode things, all those things you fight about. You fight about it. So, but in the end, you make up. So that's a good part.